In this video, I'm going to talk to you about radios. Alright, so in front of me I have a whole slew of stock radios, and I just want to briefly touch on them and then we're going to go into some specifics. This is the M2C radio. It comes with some WPL Toys cars. Here we have two Traxxas radios, a more advanced with multiple channels and then a standard 2-channel. These are the TQI. Here is a Spectrum DX3 radio. You'll see this come with a lot of axial vehicles, Losi, Arma, among all of the brands owned by Horizon. And this is a 3-channel, and we'll talk about what all that means in a minute. Here's another kind of more basic radio that comes from Horizon. Again, you'll also see that on the same kind of vehicles. This is the SLT3. This is the AMP 30. This comes with the CEN 450, CEN 450, F450. This is the radio that comes with the SCX 24, the 24 scale crawler. This is the radio that comes with the FCX 24, which is a game-changing RC in my opinion. And then this one comes with the FMS Atlas, so pretty basic. So what does it mean when I say it has channels? What do I mean when I say it has to be linked to a receiver, and all the elements that go along with that? So let's talk about that. Okay, so I'm going to go over some of the basics you'll find on stock radios, and all of these are stock. So first, what does it mean by channels? Well, channel you can think of as a function. Every radio for a surface-based vehicle like a crawler or a basher will come with at least 2 channels. Channel 1 and channel 2, 1 to turn, 2 to burn. Keep that in the back of your mind. You use channel 1 for turning, and you use channel 2 for accelerating. Now, others will come with, 3, 4, 5, 6 channels. This has a momentary switch right here, which is 3rd channel, so you can do things like add lights to channel 3 and then hit the button to turn them on and turn them off. You're also going to notice on a radio like this, you'll see these switches right here. There is the throttle limit. And it goes from 50 up to 100. There is the normal versus reverse throttle. So when it's normal, you pull the trigger, it goes forward. When it's reverse, when you pull the trigger, it goes backwards. Steering is the same thing. You have normal and reverse, so you turn left versus right, and you can adjust that. On this Spectrum radio, you can see the Spectrum battery level. You have to have the smart batteries for that, but it basically tells you how much power is left in your battery. You're also going to see all the different trims along the side here. So throttle trim, if you turn that up, it will go by itself to however fast you've turned it up. So the more you turn it up, the faster it'll go. It requires you to initiate, so start by pulling the trigger. The steering trim adjusts how far left and right you go. So if you have a car that is kind of going to the left when you pull the trigger, you're going to adjust the steering trim so it goes straight. There's also a brake rate on this one. That's not on all of them, but that's essentially how quickly the brake comes on. And this one has AVC, which is a gyro built into the receiver when this is paired with the gyro-enabled receiver. And what a gyro does is it helps you to stay straight. The higher up you turn the AVC knob, the less turn you're going to get, the more the... So you have all of these radios. You have to keep track of them. In fact, I took these off my shelf and I still have to figure out where they go. But let's look at a few aftermarket radios. This is the Dumbo RC. It's fairly cheap. It's very popular. It works really well. It has 6 channels. So when you open up this right here, you can see a lot of your adjustments in there. And there is the steering adjustment, the steering rate, throttle adjustment, including trim, the normal and the reverse, like you find on the others. Up here on the top, you'll see channel 5 and channel 6. Channel 5 is often used on crawlers to have rear steering, so you can turn it here. Channel 6, you have a gyro-enabled receiver that comes with this, so you can turn that up and down to add more or less stability. Very popular, but you can only use this with one receiver. Here are a couple of other pretty popular options. This is the RadioLink RC6GS. It's a 6-channel receiver. And then here's the 6-channel radio. And then the FlySky GT5, which is also a 6-channel radio. Now they have more features, and you'll see that there are menus here that pop up on this screen so you can make adjustments. This has a power port, a USB port in the back, so that you can update the firmware. You can see the antenna. It's kind of old school, but a really nice receiver. It has multiple switches here that you can use and you can program. There's also a momentary switch down here on the bottom. You can see that. And it's a similar setup with the FlySky GT5. A menu. Here's your antenna. 6 channels. Here you'll find 5 and 6. You have a switch right here. Momentary switch. You have a momentary button right there. Okay. And these are all programmable. So you can go into a menu and make adjustments. Now, one of the really nice things about radios like this is you can program in multiple vehicles. So you can have up to 20, I believe, programmed here. And of course, you have to buy a receiver for each one of those, put them in your RC, and then you can switch between the different receivers you have. You can add a label so that you know, for example, in this one, receiver number 1 is labeled TRX4, which goes along with that blue TRX4 Sport you see in the back there. So these are the basics of your receivers. There are a lot of others that are like this, that allow you to program multiple different kinds. Multiple different receivers. You'll see the Spectrum makes it really popular one. Multiple varieties. A little more expensive than these, but these work just well for my purposes. There are other companies like Futaba that make them as well. So this purpose of this video is just to give you a little bit of an overview, a little bit of understanding more about what these radios do. Now, what goes with the radio? You keep hearing me say transmitter and receiver. So what is a receiver? This is a receiver. This is the 30RX. It comes with the SIN F450. You can see that this is a 3-channel receiver. And remember what I said, 1 to turn, 2 to burn. And then the third one is kind of an auxiliary. So you can program that with the radio and make it for example, lights. You can just have direct power lights, so you don't need the switch on the radio. Every radio has to have a receiver. You'll also notice the 4th channel on this is to bind. So if you wanted to bind this receiver to a different radio, you could do that. And each receiver and each radio have their own instructions on how to do that. Generally, very simple. But this is just a 3-channel. There are some as high as 7 or 8. I've never had a need for something that large, but you just have to know that your radio and your receiver have to be paired together. Okay, so what we have here is we have our receiver, and you'll see that there are 2 plugs going into it. One to turn. So this first plug is hooked to a servo. Generally speaking, your dark wire is going to be facing out, so you see the brown one facing out here, but always check the manual to make sure that's the case. So we have 1 to turn, and then we have 2 to burn. So here we have the ESC hooked up to the receiver. So how does all this work? Well, What happens first is as you turn your radio, it sends a signal to the receiver, which then uses that cable to go to the servo, and then the servo turns. Along the same lines, when you pull the trigger for acceleration to move, it sends a signal to the ESC, which is then passed through this wire, which is black, red, and white, over to the ESC. And the ESC you can think about as the brains of the operation. And that's where you'll be plugging in your battery. But that ESC then channels it channels your trigger pull, your acceleration through these wires and into the motor. And this is a brushed ESC and a brushed motor. But there are also, when you set up a brushless system, it works the same. Okay, so this is some of the basics of how your car is going to work. Yeah, it's how your radio connects to the receiver and how the receiver then sends signals out to the servo and to the ESC, which from the ESC is passed to the motor. The more you know, the more advanced you can get. You can do things like rear wheel steer, different kinds of lights, a winch, sound. You can hook a sound system up to this to make it sound like you're, running a big block or whatever the case may be. So I strongly encourage you to get these basics down and then prepare yourself, move to the next level, start adding in those extras. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. And until next time,